Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a weekly deep dive into the world of college admissions.
My name is Lynda, and I'm originally from Michigan, now living in the St. Louis metro area. I'm a college coach with School Match for You and have a daughter at University of Chicago.
I'm Lisa, and I'm a clinical psychologist and college counselor. I have a daughter in college, a daughter in high school, and a son in middle school. After 30 years in Chicago, we recently moved to North Carolina.
My name is Mark. I'm a college coach in Atlanta and the parent of two daughters. Karis, a graduate of Davidson College, and she is the founder of the Spanish tutoring company, SpanishHelpToday.com. And Joy is a wellness coach at the Keenan Flagler Business School at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And I'm so blessed to be able to work alongside both my beautiful daughters at School Match for You, college counseling firm that I founded in 2010. This week in the news, Lynda and I discuss a trend I'm noticing out here that is hot, which is applications to the University of Chicago's ED0 plan. After this, we transition and you'll hear the final segment of my interview with Dan Chambliss, author of the book, How College Works. Then Lynda's back to join Lisa as Lisa breaks down Bennington College in Vermont as she was there in a recent trip to New England. Hope you enjoy this episode.
And now it's time for Hot Topics in the News.
Hey, Lynda.
Hey, Mark.
When did we last record?
It's been a hot minute, Mark. It's been a while.
Well, part of that is because you and Lisa are so good together. I was reading a response from one of the survey respondents said, like, Lisa and Lynda have good chemistry. So, people can tell when people are friends. It comes through.
Well, I'm just giving you fair warning on our last recording. Somehow we devolved into football.
You, Lisa? No,
well,
you doesn't surprise me. It's Lisa. How did you get her to talk about football?
She wasn't willing, but
yeah, of course.
I stood my ground. I said, football is fun. People like football. So you'll have to decide if you want to edit that when you come across that recording.
Might be good listening. You know what? One of the first things Lisa told me, we were, she did their 2 years at Michigan as a postdoc student. And I was like, what was it like going to a football game? Of course, she never went, but she loved the football games because the malls and every other place was wide open to her.
That I mean, I would probably go to at least one. How can you not go to Michigan State or Michigan,
sure.
Ohio? But after that, I'd probably head with her to the mall.
There you go. So listen, friends, we're going to talk about something today, which you have told us in our 2021 and 2022 survey you value a lot, and that is when we talk about admissions trends. So we're going to talk about a trend today, and Lynda's the perfect person because it involves University of Chicago. But before we get into that, Lynda's got a daughter who's about to graduate from the University of Chicago.
Oh my gosh. That went fast.
Can you believe it? It go fast?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I thought she was a junior. And if you would have said to me, she's not a junior, I would have said, she's a sophomore? That would have been my second choice guess.
Well, in my mind, she's still, like in second grade. So, yeah, I get
Once
it.
a mom, always a mom. So I'm curious, Lynda, this is a question I ask students all the time, and you're a good person to ask as well. What have you learned about the University of Chicago that you didn't know when you were a parent of a high school senior and you were seriously considering, her applying there?
It's a good question. And, I like to do my research, and I went to all the, parent day, well, not parents weekend, but accepted student days and all of that. And I think what has really surprised me is the breadth and depth of the opportunities available at the school. Just, I'm continually seeing research opportunities, speakers coming on campus, all kinds of really cool things that students can take advantage of. And I hope that there are some parents out there who can relate to this. I've also discovered I can't force my kid to take advantage of those opportunities, because as often as I would love for her to go to the IOP or something like that, she is taking advantage of the performing arts at the school, because outside of computer science related things, she's a theater kid at heart, which, by the way, has been another big surprise, is how many opportunities there are for the arts at UChicago. And we went to a performance last spring, and the lead in a musical was a chemistry major who had never participated in the arts before. And those kinds of things can happen. So just all the opportunities.
You know, I had a couple flashbacks when you were talking. One was about not being able to get your kid to do something. So we're big travelers in our family. And I took up the Southwest credit card of 2021. They were offering like $700 free travel and free companion pass and free bag and all this stuff. So now they're offering $1,000.
Oh, that's good to know.
So I told Karis and Joy, and it ended on the 17th of September. And sure enough, one of them did it and one of them didn't. So you snooze, you lose. I can't make you do it. Oh, yeah. I'll do it, Dad. So I had a flashback there. I also had a flashback when you said what your takeaway was, because I was at Chicago in 2023. Probably my biggest takeaway from that visit was when they said they had more paid research opportunities than undergraduate students.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until I visited. And I've been telling all my Chicago potential families that that's pretty impressive. And people love that. I mean, who doesn't want an opportunity like that?
I know one who doesn't.
Yeah, I guess not everybody does, you know. The other thing that jumped off to me was just, and I'd been there a lot, but it'd been a while. You know, sometimes, and you may or may not agree with this, I think you probably do, but a lot of times when people say Chicago, Hyde Park, sometimes it feels scary to them. But like when you're in that main quad, first of all, the architecture is gorgeous, but it to me, it feels very safe. Now I'm more comfortable with some aspects of urban life than some people. I know people have a different level of allergic reaction to that, but that's a pretty calming place. I just kind of hung out there for about a half an hour after the tour and just took it all in.
Oh, I absolutely adore the campus. And I get pushback on safety a lot from parents. And of course, we were concerned,
I remember that.
And when she went off to college, she had just turned 17. So she was a baby, but she hasn't felt unsafe.
Yeah.
I think the university does a really great job of patrolling. I mean, you can't go anywhere without seeing UCPD. They had been offering free lifts to students, now they still offer free transportation. It's just not via Lyft. I forget what it's called, part of their cost cutting measures. But I know there have been incidents on campus, but my student has never felt unsafe on campus or anywhere nearby campus.
So any idea what her plans are? I know you still have the whole senior year.
Yeah. So she's full on job. Well, I hope she's full on job application applying. So she's interviewing and applying, and knock wood, we'll see what happens. Awesome. Otherwise, it's back to small town Missouri.
I have a feeling she doesn't want that after the big city life.
So she is loving her life up there in Chicago. Yeah.
Well, that's a good incentive to do all the job stuff. So as I said, friends, we're going to talk about a trend, and the trend has to do with UChicago. UChicago rolled out an plan called ED0. And I'm going to have Lynda mention that, or describe what ED0 is in a second. But the trend that I've noticed is that ED0 is hot. I mean, hot. I mean, I have more students doing Chicago's ED0 this year than I've ever had do all their EDs combined. So ED1, ED2, I don't have usually 3 kids that do ED to UChicago. I just never have. I'm usually 0, 1, or 2. And I think I have 4 ED0s this year to Chicago. Now, I wanted to mention this as a trend, not just because it's UChicago, but because there's a sense in which, while people are creative out here, people are also copycats, and everybody's trying to figure out what works. So when you see Northeastern have their success with their satellite campuses, you better believe they're going to spread, and those satellite campuses have spread. You see colleges starting to buy out other colleges and take over, whether it's art schools or other schools that are underfunded. You see that spread. I could go on and on, whether it's the facilities races or whatever. When people see something's working, they're like, okay, let me tap into that. So part of why I wanted to talk about this is I fully expect other schools to copy. Once those numbers come out, and there's no doubt in my mind they're going to be high. I already had a conversation with one person. Well, you know what? I can share this because, maybe I better not. But you were part of this conversation, Lynda, and another leader who was saying, you know what? Why? Maybe we need to do that. We've got a summer program. We can evaluate kids. We're talking about it. And I'm fully expecting it. It's not going to be something that 50 schools are going to do.
Yeah.
Because there's not that many schools that have this set up. But anyway, some people are like, what are you talking about? Let Lynda explain what it is. Go ahead, Lynda.
Okay. Well, first, we call it ED0, but it's actually called Summer Session Early Notification, or SSEN, and which is a terrible acronym, and nobody's going to find that. But I mention that because if parents or students go to the website and go to the admissions page where they talk about ED, ED2, they're not going to see this there. It's under its own page, Summer Session Early Notification, commonly known as ED0. And what this is if a student completes a UChicago pre-college summer program, residential or online, they can apply. And this is a binding application option. And there's a small window when they can apply. It opens September 1, closes October 15. And if you apply, you're going to get your decision within 3 weeks or by November 1. So you've just given yourself another option. So if it doesn't work out at UChicago, you still have time to apply ED to another school if you'd like. And this is, again, any summer program. And it doesn't have to be just that summer before you apply. So if you were in 10th grade and you took a summer program, that still counts. Students who take a summer program will get a notification. They'll get an email giving them all of the details on how to apply. If you attended a program earlier, then you just reach out to your regional rep, and they have all of that on the UChicago website. It also means that you don't have to have as many recommendations. So for most of these programs, you're going to have a teacher recommendation, and they will use that if it's on. And they waive the requirement for the counselor letter as well, because it's so early and puts a lot of pressure on your school counselor. So they'll review it without that counselor letter. And you're still eligible for financial aid. And UChicago meets 100% of demonstrated need, and that is true for these ED0 students as well.
Yeah, and one thing I know you and I have talked about, maybe not on the podcast, but just off air, is sort of debunking the myth that it's going to be $15K to have to go to a summer program. It's true, UChicago does have some programs that are $15,000, but do you want to talk about how not all of them are 15? You want to talk about that? Because I think that's important.
Yeah, well, I know I have said that before. And so I went out this week to take a look and see what's going on with UChicago summer programs. And I think the pricing has changed. So now they are running between 2,500 and 14K, 1 week to 4 week. Now, the caveat is that they offer financial aid for all of those multi-week programs. For their 1 week programs, if your family has an income under 120,000, they waive the fee. And if it's under, I think, 65,000, they'll also pay for your travel expenses. So it doesn't look like they have any more free. I think some of the rural programs used to be no cost, but now they are offering pretty significant financial aid for students.
So what is your theory as to why it seems so popular? Do you have any thoughts on that? Yeah, I'm talking particularly about, I'm going to continue to call it ED0.
Me too. I just don't want anybody looking for ED0 on the website.
I'm glad you said that clarification.
I mean, we love it when students apply ED, because one of the things that happens is they get a decision back before winter break and you can enjoy the rest of your senior year. So you could have a decision back by Halloween and truly enjoy like the remainder of football season. So that's one benefit. And UChicago likes their ED students.
Sure.
And I met with them last year, went through their admissions program, and we talked about this when it had just started. And at that time, the thought was that this would be popular and it would make it even tougher for RD students, which we know is already, it's rugged trying to get into Chicago in regular decision. So I feel like students feel like they're going to get an even bigger bump with ED0, and they get it out of the way. And if it doesn't work out, they get another shot. So then they can still apply ED or ED2. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, totally. And you know that Chicago likes ED. Sam took advantage of the ED option and is a student there. I think you hit on a lot of the reasons. Definitely people like the fact that they know the ED acceptance rate is higher than the regular decision acceptance rate. Now, Chicago once told a group of us counselors that if we provide a non-binding way for you to apply and you don't take it, you're signaling to us that we're a backup. What does that mean? Chicago's one of these schools that has now ED0, ED1, ED2, and early action. So they have looked at regular decision applicants as people that are adding them on and not that serious about them. That's not always true, by the way. We know that. Somebody might have just discovered they liked it. They might have visited later. They might be coming from a background where they're not getting a lot of counsel, but they're working off of that assumption. Prior to this, they have had an acceptance rate under 1% in the regular round. So now they're looking at it as, okay, we've got ED0, ED1, ED2, and early action. Good luck in RD.
Exactly.
So when I just look at all the students that I have doing it, one, they're people that did the summer program and like the school. So they have at least vetted it and said, yeah, this is a place I would be happy to go to. And I've done a trial run. But they also like the fact that there's a higher acceptance rate. They like the fact that they still potentially could have 2 more shots at ED. Mm-hmm. I was just talking to one of them and they told me the strategy. If I don't get in this ED0, this is where I'm ED1ing. Like that, they like that. I haven't heard it as a primary reason, but they certainly don't mind the fact that the application process is easier. when they're considering it.
You still have to write those essays.
Yeah, that's true. But as far as chasing down Rex, now that's never been a primary reason, but they do like it. So I really think it boils down to the fact that they like the school and they know their chances are higher, and they like the fact that they still have a couple other options. Now, part of me is hesitant to bring this up because I read some stat once, and I don't know. It's in my mind. It could be wrong. I can't remember how credible the source was, but it was something like 5% of people actually apply ED. I mean, enroll in colleges with ED, right? So when you look at the broad scheme, a little more than 200 colleges have ED, so about 10%. Now, they tends to be very, very popular with private schools that are moderately to ultra selective.
Mm-hmm.
Very common there. Very rare in public schools. We've talked about it a little bit. Growing now, especially with Vermont, Yukon, Virginia, and Michigan, 4 flagships having it. But still, very rare publics. And you don't really see it with really high admit rate private schools, partly because they're afraid nobody would commit. It's a lot. You're asking people to commit, 6 months before they need to, May 1 being National Candidate Reply Day. And that language is strong language. Pull all the rest of your offers, pull all the rest of your applications without seeing what people have to, offer. And a lot of people either want to be able to compare money or they're just really curious. I have a lot of people that say to me, you know what? I am just too curious to know where else I'm going to get in. You are kind of that way a little bit, Lynda. I remembered that.
Well, it's really hard, and now especially like, well, maybe I'll be one of those, I'll get off the Duke wait list in August. Maybe that'll be me.
Sure.
So I get it,
Yeah.
You want to see what happens.
But I want to stress, and I can't stress this enough, like, don't feel bad at all if you are saying, we're not applying ED as a family, because you know what? The whole list is good. And if one of these other schools is going to throw $30,000 at us, that's $120,000 over 4 years after tax money. That's over $150,000. You can get a great education at a lot of these, and we're not going to play that game. Like, don't have any false guilt about that.
Absolutely. Because
that is an absolute, I'll put it this way. The families that I work with that take that route, that have realistic expectations, they rarely regret that. I mean, it's very rare that they regret that. They almost always will. It worked out for me. My kids still got in places. And I don't think we would have got this package we got, especially now, because we're in an era where schools need kids so badly. They're more willing to wheel and deal and readjust their aid offers. So I just want to go into that because I don't want people to have any false guilt. And I've talked to families I've worked with that wrestle with that. Like, I'm not letting my kid apply ED for financial reasons, but her peers are doing that, or his peers are doing that. And am I a bad parent? And I have to almost, like, those kinds of thoughts come into people's minds. And I don't want people to feel any guilt over that at all. And just know that most of the time when people make the decision not to, it really works out well. As long as you're realistic about what your chances are.
Oh, and that's the key. And I know you say this is you don't apply if it's not your top choice. It's don't feel like you have to use that ED opportunity somewhere, because I don't want you to get into your 4th choice school just because it offered ED. It's not a good reason.
I like to say to people, ED is marriage. EA and RD is dating. So are you ready for marriage, or do you want to stick with dating? It tends to help make that point a little bit. So when we think about who else could do it, I doubt it will be one of the Ivies. Like Brown runs a big program. A lot of these schools, run big programs. I mean, there's a lot. Yale, Harvard, Stanford that have these big college programs. I don't think it's going to be one of them. I think that whether this is, fair or not, I think within the Ivy League, there's a perception that that's taking a lower route. If you notice, no single Ivy League school has ED2. And I know some of them would love to have ED2, but I feel like they would feel like they're being shunned. Not shunned isn't the right word, that they were lowering their standards. That's how it would be perceived within the Ivy League, because you already have the single choice early action schools of Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. Every once in a while, they can get a little preachy at the other ones. Like, why are you locking kids in? Not everybody knows by November where they're going to go. We think it's more fair to give them until May. But, that has its own problems because they still put restrictions. So I've always had a little problem with the sermonizing and the self-righteousness of that. But I don't think another Ivy would do it. But I look for other schools that are not in the Ivy League, whether it's liberal arts or other publics, that have pretty big summer programs. We'll see, to follow suit. But I've just seen it over the years. When somebody has results, everybody else starts saying, and it's just getting so, it's just getting so competitive out there. Like, it kind of is a good opportunity for a school.
It is. And I tell you, I have a student that wishes that they had known about this ahead of time, because it's too late to, quick take a summer class. They wound up taking a summer program at Emory, and could have done it at UChicago, which is turning out to be higher on their list than Emory. So now I want to make sure that those high school students know, if you are looking for a summer program, here's an additional benefit to the UChicago programs versus another school, just to keep your options open.
One thing I wonder about, and I don't know if we'll ever get this. I don't think they'll share this. Sometimes when people hear there's a higher admit rate in ED, it leads people who are still out of profile for ED to think, oh, this is my chance. I have some more blemishes on my transcript or my academic record than I probably want. This is the panacea to make up for that. And I think some of those people might be surprised. It's the same reason why some schools will tell you their ED2 admit rate is lower than their ED1 admit rate, is because sometimes people just overshoot. And they think, oh, ED, and they still, they didn't get an ED1, and then they overshoot for ED2. So, we'll see. I think there's some of that going on out there, but we'll see. Anything else you want to share about this topic we haven't covered, Lynda?
I don't think so. I think that's it. Just know when you go to look for it on the website, summer session early notification, aka ED0.
Yeah, and one other thing I will say, Bob Massa brought this up when Susan and I interviewed him, that if you do apply ED, I absolutely believe the responsible thing for you to do is to run a net price calculator and see if it's within budget. If you don't do that, that's really not being, responsible. But the point Bob Massa brought up is you can get out of that if the numbers don't work. And I think I'm almost quoting him correctly here. We don't do a very good job of explaining that to families, meaning on the school side, because of course schools are hoping that, there's almost a 1-for-1. And yeah, there's a lot involved in that because the counselor signs off, and a lot of counselors, trying to protect their reputation. They don't want to feel like, hey, I signed off on this and then the kid didn't do it. And so it's tricky, but it's just something to be aware of. They can't throw you in jail. There's nothing legally binding. I do believe you have an obligation, though, to run a calculator and to not expect more aid than the calculator gives you.
And I feel that's a given. I agree with you 100%, because otherwise, how do you know when they come back with their offer if it's off base or not? So yes, run those NPCs.
Yeah. And also, if you run a calculator and it says you're going to get X amount of dollar, you're going to pay whatever. Let's say it says you're going to pay 60. I'm just making a number up here. And let's say the school asks you to pay 67. You do want to go back and do an appeal, because when they admit you, they want you. And a lot of times they will do what they can to see if they can make it work. I've had times when they don't make it work, because if you read the fine print, they are not obligated to honor the calculator. The calculator doesn't catch all exceptions. They're not bound by that. It is more of an estimate. But know when they admit you, they want you. And if it's possible for them within the confines and constraints of how they evaluate, they'll try their hardest to make it work. When you actually talk to colleges, they don't lose very many ED kids because the money wasn't able to work. So anyway, I'm not talking about size of mouth. When I said you don't have to do it, then I'm coaching people how to do it. Just trying to cover all bases.
Bases covered.
Awesome. Well, we'll look forward to an update sometime on what Sam's up to post U Chicago.
Makes me sad just thinking about it, Mark.
Thank you, Lynda. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Friends, in the final part of my interview with Dan Chambliss, Dan talks about tapping into student motivation. How do you do it? He talks about how he applied the results of the research in the book to make himself a much better professor. And you got to hear what he ended up doing to make himself a better professor. And then Dan and I bounce around and talk about a bunch of different topics that I think you'll find very interesting. Listen and enjoy.
You know, you can have a successful institution with all kinds of different curricula. So in a sense, I don't know why people spend so much time. I mean, it's fun to talk about what students ought to be learning. But again, that's not the problem. The problem isn't the content. The problem is motivation. And you need to focus instead of talking about curriculum, why don't we talk about how do we get these students really gung-ho to do whatever it is we're offering?
So what is your research on motivation? Because there are some people that say you take a horse to water, you can't make him drink. Like it's got to be internal. It has to come from inside.
Yes, I agree. The door is locked from inside is the phrase I would use, right? You can't force a student to be motivated. What you can do is find out what they're interested in, find out what they care about. And it might be a topic. It might be, I mean, I know a lot of students I had at the particular school I worked at, they didn't care about their grades. They did care that I thought they were smart, worthy people. They cared that I respected them.
You know what that reminds me of?
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll have a student say to me, I don't like to read.
Yeah.
And my answer to them is, I don't believe you.
Right.
I just don't believe you found the thing yet that you really love.
That you really want to read about.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. I think that's that's a brilliant way to put it.
That's kind of the same point you're making.
Yeah.
You got to know how to push the right buttons.
You got to push the right buttons.
By tapping into what that student cares about.
Find out what they actually care about and then just feed that as fast as you can. And you can work then to show them there are connections to things you're doing. But you can't force it. No, obviously.
So Dan, how has your book been used? It's been out now for a while. You know, there are a lot of Mellon Foundation came behind with some really strong funding, and you had a good team. What are some ways that you've seen people implement some of the research, either colleges making changes or students approaching college differently? What can you say?
I would say we got a lot of good response from student life people. We got actually a fair amount from architectural firms.
There you go.
Oddly enough, about that. A lot of alumni groups sort of bought into this. There were particular colleges that went for it. Professors generally didn't care, right? I think the faculties, most places, it just kind of flew right past them.
And do you think that's because, hey, I'm going to do things my way? I've been doing it 30 years and I know what works, and why do I need to listen to this guy?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. But there were definitely some, I probably shouldn't name names, but there were some college presidents who latched onto it pretty seriously and said, I'm going to try to do this. Because
we name names on this podcast. You're not throwing anybody under the bus.
No, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I don't know.
That's all right. You know,
I mean, some of them have been public about it, but Yeah, no, that's okay.
And one of the things I know you said right in the start about the book was you were very intentional about trying to come up with solutions that one wouldn't only apply to Hamilton,
Right.
and also that wouldn't be so cost
The beat
prohibitive
sheet. Yeah,
that
absolutely.
they couldn't be
Yeah.
implemented
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
a, you
Cost
know,
neutral.
yeah, you were really.
Cost neutral.
And do you feel that you were able to be successful at both of those
Yes.
things? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, because we laid out those constraints at the
Hmm.
beginning and said, look,
Hmm.
it's so easy. It's so easy to go around and say, well, like, I don't know, colleges need to have more advisors.
Hmm.
Well, great. How are you going to pay for that one, right?
Right.
Or
Lower
or
your tutoring ratios or more
lowering your,
tutors.
yeah, right,
Yeah,
right. Change your student faculty ratio to 10-1, everything will be great. Well, no kidding, like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not very helpful. They come up with expensive solutions.
Hmm.
And a lot of, I've seen, over the years, numbers of deans and presidents stuff, they come up with big new program without telling anybody what they're supposed to stop doing in order to do that. No, we tried to have cost neutral sorts of activities. Um, and I would say, for instance, for me as individual professor,
Hmm.
one of the things that I did when I started understanding all this stuff, I stopped spending so much time preparing for classes,
Hmm.
truthfully, right? And instead spent that time talking with students, talking with live students one on one or in groups or whatever, or I'd take a group out to dinner or something like that. And I found any loss in my preparation for class was more than made up for by the students' enthusiasm. You get students on your side and they feel like they can trust you and all, they'll carry the ball. And that's just one sort of thing from an individual.
Was that sort of how you sort of implemented some of the research
Yeah.
yourself in your own
Yeah.
everyday
Oh yeah.
practice? Yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
That whole people
Yeah.
don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. Is that part of it?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And stuff about the intro class being crucial.
Mm-hmm.
We put a lot more into that, into
Mm-hmm.
intro in particular, and pandering to students who wanted to learn, giving
Mm-hmm.
them what they want, asking the students, what do you think would be helpful in class? How can I teach this writing course
Mm-hmm.
was a big one for me at one point. And I said, how do you do? And they said, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, but be sure to always do this, this, and this. You start doing it, same amount of work for
Mm-hmm.
me, right? Sometimes less.
Mm-hmm.
Fabulous results. It's in a sense, it's not that tricky. But you got to ask the right students.
No, that's important. So, Dan, we're about to transition to our lightning round. Before we do, is there anything you haven't said on the book that you want our listeners to leave and take away?
Yeah, I would say two things for especially for parents of prospective college students, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the students themselves. Number one, the most important thing in college is who are the people you're going to spend time with. Okay. Who are you going to meet? Who are you going to spend time with? And that's partly about networking, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's about opening your eyes to
Mm-hmm.
other experiences, to meeting different kind of people, to understanding the world in different ways. But it's about the people you meet. Now, if you want to go to engineering school or nursing school, for instance, those are great things to do. But within those topics, you might say, think about the people you're meeting, because that's where the leverage really is. Okay. The second thing, maybe more global in a sense, is that college should be different from high school. Don't just do more of the same. What you want is what I think of as a comfortable stretch. You want to go to a place where, yeah, you'll feel good being there and you can work with the people there and stuff, but it kind of pulls you, in a direction you want to go. It kind of pulls you. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, it's good stuff. Appreciate your work and the effort you put
Thank you.
into this.
Thank you.
And I know it's a
yeah.
long endeavor, almost a 10-year longitudinal study.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I've been thinking about the issues for a lot longer. So
do you have any more
true.
books in you?
Now I'm retired, you
I know,
understand,
but
and
once a teacher, not,
I have 7 grandchildren, some of
Okay.
whom live locally. So I do articles at this
There you
point.
go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mostly. We'll
Can
see.
still
We'll
write.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Awesome. So first question, what do you wish your 18-year-old self knew?
What do I wish my that's a kind of personal question, isn't it?
Oh, we get personal in the
You
lightning
always-
round.
Is this from you or from what do I wish my I guess I'd say it's okay,
Yeah.
like don't worry about it.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Yeah, exactly. I think
I'll
that's
never
right.
forget. I used to do B2B Fortune 500 sales. I did it for 5 to 6 years, and had a manager give me that book as the Christmas gift one time. That was the name of it. Don't sweat the small stuff.
I remember. It was a great title.
Yeah, it was a great title.
And it's all small, as I think was the subtitle, something like that.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Second, if you were to go to college all over again, what would you do differently, knowing what you know now?
What would I do? You mean academically?
Anything.
Anything.
Could be anything.
Anything. Well, I'd probably be more open to some of the girls who came on to me. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just telling you the truth.
I love the truth.
I was young.
Were you too persnickety back then and too picky?
Well, it wasn't persnickety. It was
just no interest in them.
No, well, I wouldn't put it that way either. No, I was young, I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know. Yeah. So I missed a lot of signals. Let's put it that way.
There you go. You go.
Yeah.
How do you relax?
Now?
Yeah. How do you chill? How do you unwind? I mean, I know you're
I like
retired.
doing this. No, I like doing this.
Yeah.
I like talking to smart people about interesting subjects.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest. I spend a lot of time on Zoom talking with former students.
Sure.
I have one from 1977.
Whoa.
I taught in a course in 1977.
Wow.
First course I ever taught, and we Zoom once a month.
Wow.
And she's almost retired now. I mean, but I talked to a lot of former students from over the years.
Have you found many of them have gone on to become sociology professors?
Oh gosh, no. I mean, a few, but I knew that was never in the cards. The kind of school I was teaching at wasn't. People weren't headed in an academic direction. They did all kind of cool stuff, and they were smart as hell. But no, that was just different. Yeah.
There was a book that came out a while ago about Hamilton. Do you know which book I'm talking about? It was about admissions.
Yeah.
And it kind of tried to not say the name of the school.
It didn't say the name of the school.
But the word all got out eventually.
The word kind of got out eventually, yeah.
What were your thoughts on that? Because
great book.
Yeah.
It's called Creating a Class.
Yes.
It's by Mitchell Stevens, who's a friend of mine.
Yeah. Yeah. I had someone on this podcast who thought that was one of the best books that's been written to understand admissions. Creating a great book. Yeah.
No, it is. It's a great book. And by the way, I don't know that it was Hamilton in the sense. I mean, he never told me, and I have no firsthand knowledge of it. But I mean, it sure looks like it.
Yeah.
So I just to preserve his
anonymity,
his whatever. Yeah, confidence.
Yeah.
No, it's a great book.
What is it about that book that you think is? Why do you call it great?
It's dead on accurate for one thing, which a lot of books aren't. He doesn't go beyond what he really knows. I think his the best part of that book is his chapter on the way in which sports teams influence admissions is really powerful because it explains the dynamic where no matter how, sports teams have to win, right? For the coaches to stay in business.
Right.
Which means that every year that they don't win puts more pressure on them to reach further down in the admissions pool.
Yeah.
And so if a lot of schools are doing this, pretty soon you've got this race, where everybody's trying to get any athlete they can get their hands on. And that's much more influential, where faculty, you don't know if you're winning or not.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. A lot of professors think, we get great students. We don't know because we never see the kids at other schools.
Yeah. And, you really see that on my end. especially for revenue producing sports or larger
Oh, yeah.
sports.
Oh, yeah.
So if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
talking about football or ice hockey or, sports that, or if
Mhm.
it, that are larger, if revenue's
Yeah.
involved, if it's important to the college,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. There's a
you
lot of
know,
pressure, and
well, yeah,
it's life or death pressure for the coaches.
and a lot of crazy stuff happens. I'm working with a family right now, and the mom's had it with this process, the over promising and all, you know what I mean? Like
And
the
that's what they're
and
doing.
and what she says to me all the time when we talk is, do they couldn't care less about my kid's mental health,
They're right.
the stuff that they say that they don't, so there's all of that aspects of it.
And it's not because the coaches are bad people. It's because they got no choice. They've got to survive in a
Win or get
incredibly
fired.
in a incredibly competitive profession,
Hmm.
right? Whereas we sociology professors, I'm fine, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Nobody's measuring how my students are doing every year.
Wasn't Mitchell Stevens a sociologist?
Yeah,
Does
he is. He is a sociologist.
Yeah, because he comes at
You should
that.
have him on.
Yeah, actually, you know
You
what? I
should
think I
have
will
him
have
on.
him on.
He's
Yeah.
great. He's
Why don't
he's
you
smart.
why don't you do an introduction between us? If you still in touch with him?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Oh yeah,
Do an
sure.
email introduction because I'd love
Yeah.
to talk to him about his book,
Yeah.
creating a class. Because
Well,
you
there's
don't
that.
see a lot of people that approach admissions through that sociological lens.
Yeah, no. He's very, very good. And he's the director of a program at Stanford now in the education school that's looking at college pathways and how
Nice.
students kind of negotiate their way as he's the star. I mean,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah,
top
maybe
of
we'll
the
talk about that.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk to him. I like to
Oh yeah.
talk to people and see what are you passionate about, and then have them come on and talk about their areas of passion.
Oh yeah. No, he's great. He's great.
So if
I
you
hired him for his
there you
first
go.
year. Okay, I just want you to
There
know
you
that
go. Good stuff.
spotted him early.
So if you did have another book in you,
Yeah.
or even a longer article, what are some
Yeah.
topics that percolate in your mind that you think, you know what? I
Well,
kind of want to get something out there on this topic.
yeah.
What are some other
Okay.
things?
Well, there are
Yeah.
two. One is this one we're talking about in a sense is I'm fascinated with what college really is
Mhm.
and how I think people misunderstand what college is and what it can do and
Mhm.
whether that's okay and all those issues, not just the personal contacts thing, though that's a big
Mhm.
part of it, but also how it's different from high school. I think a lot of people don't understand. Like, I think I'll be provocative here.
Mhm.
I think dual enrollment
Mhm.
programs are
Mhm.
kind of a scam.
Mhm.
Okay. And it's not that there's anything wrong with
Mhm.
taking dual enrollment courses,
Mhm.
but they're taught in high school
Mhm.
by high school teachers to high school students. And that means that the teachers don't have the same kind of expertise that college teachers have. It's a different profession. I'm not saying they're worse teachers, not at all, but that they have a different approach to the disciplines than college teachers. The students in high school are not selected the way college students are, even self-selected. And the big one actually is that high schools are affected by parents a lot.
Mhm.
Colleges aren't.
Mhm.
I cannot remember a college professor ever worrying what my parents thought about his course, her
Mhm.
course, right? I mean, it's just different. And when you first go to college, at least I had this experience, it was a shock in a positive direction. The stuff they could say
Mhm.
and talk about and do and their attitudes about it. I mean, they didn't care what my parents were going to think. Okay. And that's a different world. And so pretending that a course is a college course when it isn't part of that different world, I think is kind of misleading.
The only thing that I would say to push back a little is
Yeah, please.
there are different variations of dual enrollment. So you're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about the
Oh, yeah.
model where
That's true.
where the high school teacher teaches that. There's also a
Right.
model where the kid goes to the college campus
That's
and
different. No, I agree.
takes it there. And there's also
Yeah.
a model
Yeah.
where the college professor
Offers.
comes to the high school and
Yeah.
teaches the class, but it's the college. So there are
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
there are different
Sure.
strands out there. But
Sure.
I think we know what your point was. And I think your point
Yeah.
is well taken.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a fascinating sort of topic. I don't know if anybody
Yeah.
else cares about it,
Well,
but there it is.
that would
Okay, that's
be
one.
that'd be a very good one because dual enrollment is on the rise right now. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of, there's a lot of intrigue about it, right? Some of it is,
Intrigue. Yeah.
some
Yeah.
of it is,
Yeah.
some of it is financial because the public
Of
colleges
course.
generally allow you to
Of
come in with a half a year credit or a year
Of
credit.
course, of
You
course.
know,
The financial stuff
yeah,
matters. I mean, that's why MOOCs were attractive.
sure, of course.
Like they're cheap. Well, yeah, but they also offer a lot less, right?
And for those of you who are wondering, we've thrown the word
So-
MOOC around a long time. That's an acronym
I'm
for
sorry.
Massive Open Online. I did it first. Massive Open Online Course. They really, I'm going to say about 15 years ago, they were sort of seen as the panacea to solve
hot
things.
thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's
They've
like
died out a little, but they're still out there.
Well, and it's basically getting students to watch a video course.
Yeah.
Well, great. Good luck with that. I mean, we saw in the pandemic, we saw how well that works or doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's one topic. The other topic is I have a long-standing interest in performance generally, and I may have mentioned I did a book about Olympic swimmers.
Yeah, you did.
And it was very well received, and some of that writing has lasted for many years. And I'm very interested in what conditions help people do well at things.
Oh, wow.
So in the college context, it's like, when do
Sure.
you become a real successful college student?
Yeah.
But it goes more broadly than that.
There probably would be broader appeal for that than to do enrollment, just because the nature of that scope, that's just so
no, I know.
applicable to so many people.
For sure.
One. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, and that's fun stuff to talk about and kind of complicated. What produces excellence and that sort of thing is a big topic. Yeah.
Is there any book that you would recommend parents read besides your own, of course? Apparently, you've seen our listeners. I sent you a survey. Most of them have kids in high school, and they are college grads, most of them themselves, who believe passionately in education. Any book that you think, this is a really good one? You might want to add it to your book.
I would say two thoughts. One is Mitchell's book is quite good, Creating a Class, about college admissions and how it works. And I haven't seen anything that's better.
Yeah.
I would say that.
And for our listeners would really like that book, Creating a Class.
Yeah. And he's an unusually sophisticated thinker who can write in a very accessible way. That combination is also rare, I would say. The other, this is more narrow in a sense, is Fareed Zakaria's book on liberal arts.
Making the case for the liberal arts?
Is that what it's called?
Well, no.
Fareed
Zakaria from CNN.
Yeah. I mean, he's a smart guy, right?
Yeah.
And he writes beautifully.
Yeah.
And it's not long, but it makes a case for liberal arts that I think is quite good. Other than that,
do you think the liberal arts is starting to come back? There's some talk about that. You've got people like Mark Cuban out there saying we need more liberal arts. We need the critical thinking skills, the communication skills, of
that is true. I mean, it's a real problem that people. Okay, I'll say it the best way I can. There's a kind of paradox. The only people who believe in liberal arts are people who themselves have experienced it.
Yeah.
And part of the reason for that is that a liberal arts program teaches you to make connections that you wouldn't see otherwise.
Sure.
And most people can't see the connection of a liberal arts education to a good job. But a liberal arts education would show you that connection. It's kind of odd.
Yeah.
Because I think really it's liberal arts programs are for upper level management is what they're for, because you get used to thinking about big issues and about lasting questions that always keep coming up, that recur, or about human psychology, or tragedy or love, or why do people do what they do, or in my case, like about organizations and how they work and how a society works and why there are why different groups fight with each other, things of that sort that turn out to be incredibly relevant if you're in a management position. And so what we saw with a lot of our students when I was teaching at a liberal arts school is for the first 5 years, people would kind of float around, doing this thing or that thing or whatever, because they didn't have an obvious track in. But once they reached a level where they could start addressing tougher issues, and how do we get this department to work with that department, all of a sudden the liberal arts kids just took off like a rocket because they were used to dealing with those questions and they had thought them through, and they weren't taken aback when some big dilemma comes up, because they took philosophy. I studied these dilemmas all the time, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So it's a hard sell. There's no question.
Yeah, no, it's a hard sell.
I mean, the first gen kids and their parents.
Yeah, it's a real tough sell.
It's a very tough sell.
I think, there's so much out there these days about the comp sci grads having higher unemployment rates than everybody else. So people are starting to look for other alternatives.
That's right.
Now,
10 years ago, computer science was all the thing. And, you're guaranteed, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You're not guaranteed jack. You're not guaranteed anything these days. You do better to prepare yourself for a wide range of issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what liberal arts programs do.
Dan, last question. Any advice for, listeners?
Are you thinking prospective student type?
Normally the way I say is parent. Normally the way I phrase it is parents, students, or college counselors are three groups that listen.
Parents, students, or college counselors. Any advice for them? I don't know. Support intellectual life.
There you go.
I mean, read, write. Read some magazines now and then.
Yeah.
Read books. I think that's the biggest challenge for us right now.
Not reading. Yeah. Dan, this has been awesome. Thank you for being so generous. You've given me 2 months of 2 hours. 2 hours.
2 hours.
Doesn't feel like
2 months.
It went by fast. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it immensely.
Well, me too, Mark. Thank you so much.
And where can people get your book?
It's been a pleasure.
The book is How College Works. Where can people get it?
If you Google How College Works, it pops up.
I got it on Amazon.
Dan Chambliss. You get it on Amazon. You get Harvard University Press. I don't know.
Good stuff.
It's not hard to find.
I'm going to tell our listeners to read it before this interview. I think they'll get more out of it too. So
if you get caught up in the details, just go intro and conclusion. You'll do fine. Right? We tried to make it open that way.
No, thanks a bunch. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Friends, if you enjoyed this interview, reach out to Daniel. He'd love to hear from you. I'm going to give you Dan's email. It's just dchambliss@hamilton.edu. dchambliss@hamilton.edu. Shoot him a little email and tell him what you liked about the interview. You'll make his day and maybe his week.
And now it's time for our College Spotlight of the Week.
Hey, Lynda. I'm back. How are you?
Hey, Lisa. Life is good here.
All right. Well, today was another beautiful day in New England. Sun was shining, and we saw two more Vermont schools, Middlebury and Bennington, both really unique and both very different. And I would like to focus more of our time today on Bennington because it is so unique, and I don't think people really maybe have heard of it or kind of understand how it works there. And it is different than your typical college. And then Middlebury, we can chat about. I know that the director of admissions has been on the podcast more than once. And but I just kind of wanted to review some of the stuff about their admissions data that she told us today, that I think it would be like, it's just a good reminder for all of us about schools and how hard they are to get into. But, so Bennington is in Bennington, Vermont, which is a small town. And Bennington itself is I think 10-minute drive from that town. So you're just driving. It's literally in the country. And there's it feels like there's nothing there, but it's beautiful country. It's rolling hills. The mountains are in the distance. Everything's green. It's beautiful. And then, so you have this kind of pastoral setting, and then you drive up, and then there are all these buildings, which are pretty modern looking. They're kind of like, I don't know how exactly to describe this, but like super fancy sheds, super fancy giant sheds with windows and all the amenities, but they look sort of rural, I guess, which I guess would go with the just kind of the setting. And there are some historic buildings too. There was a rich family that donated all the land, and their mansion is still um, there. And I believe now the mansion houses their music department.
Okay,
That's sort of the edge of campus.
I'm just Googling Bennington images right now to see about these fancy sheds. And it does look like a picture perfect place. So every building looks beautiful.
Yeah, I
Can,
mean, it's just like they're modern, but they're not unattractive at all. They look nice, and it kind of goes with the land. But it's sort of a little bit like you don't expect it, I guess. I don't know what I was gonna. I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest with you.
yeah.
But it wasn't that. So that's all I can say. Cognitive dissonance. It's a pretty small campus. It's got a pretty small footprint, but there are only 800 students, undergraduate students who are there. And there are 200 graduate students, but they said they're kind of like low residence, like they maybe do some of it like hybrid. Um,
Hmm.
and they look at themselves as a liberal arts college. And they are known for things like the visual arts and the performing arts, but they have a full complement of other subjects that a person can study: math, science, psychology, computer science,
Hmm.
and they have a lot of other um, things that a person can study. And I guess this school was originally started as a women's college, and it got started. The people who started it were working at a different school, and they got annoyed because the school wouldn't change quickly enough because of all the traditions. And so they said, we are going to start our own school, and we're going to do things differently.
I like
And
these
we're going to
people.
have a nimble school. This was back in 1932, and they are just like done, done, done with the other school, and that's it. So there's one building where everything originally happened, and that's building is still exists, and they now it houses a dining hall and some classes and like an event space. It's really pretty, but the one of the things that they decided with this school is that it's each student creates a program of self-directed learning, and there are no majors.
No majors.
Yeah.
Okay. So going to need some more deets on that, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely did too. So, they don't have majors, they don't have departments, they have areas of study, and they really encourage students to do interdisciplinary, self-directed study. So the way this works is you create your own personal plan, your educational plan. And every year you review and adjust your plan. But the way you create a plan if you're a student is your first year, you are assigned an advisor, your first year advisor. And that advisor advises you to take a variety of classes. Again, there's not like any distribution requirements or anything like that.
Hmm.
But there are no rules, but there's guidance, I guess I should say. And so you are guided to take certain classes. And then you kind of talk about like what you learned in them. You think about how that applies to your interest, and at the end of the year, your assignment is to write a self-reflective essay about what you learned and what you want to learn. Because what they really want you to do is identify a question that throughout your 4 years there, you are going to answer this question. And it can be any kind of question. It could be a research question. It could be an artistic question. It could be an analysis of literature. It's really just what you want to do and what you're interested in is what the question is focused on. And then they use that to craft your plan of study.
Hmm. It's
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I think it really is. I mean, you and I try to get kids to write self-reflective essays all the time. And so I was like, that sounds hard. But I guess, they may have a whole year of college to mature by the time these first year advisors are asking them to do that. And then during the second year, they are given a faculty advisor based on their main area of study, and they're assigned other um, professors too, and then it forms your plan committee, and you meet with your plan committee, and um, you know every year, and you come up with a plan of study, which then gets sent to the dean, and the dean looks it over and makes sure it's okay. um, and so one of the things, like, you can't just plan to not take any classes or whatever. Your plan has to have a significant amount of rigor, and it has to lead to some kind of capstone project. And again, that capstone project could be a sculpture, or it could be a paper, or it could be some kind of presentation, or it could be anything. And so students can and probably should be adjusting their plan as they go along. And that's something that their committee helps them with. So I thought that was really interesting. And then there's another thing that I also thought was really interesting, is that every year you were required to do a 6 weeks paid internship, preferably with the month of January and the first 2 weeks of February.
Is this the field work that I've heard about with this school?
Yes. So that they call it the field work, and that has been in place since it was formed. So those women who were there in 1933 were having to go find some paid work. And I don't even know who was going to pay them to do work in 1933, because it was not easy for them to do that. But
Laundry had to be done even back then, Lisa.
Yeah, of course, Lynda.
Sorry. I know. Well, I don't know. Maybe there was something else besides the laundry.
I am sure. I'm just going to say there was,
bread to be baked. I don't know.
Lynda. I mean, surely there were, like, in 1933, there were women doing great things. Maybe not as many as there are now, but,
maybe. Let me ask you about, because this is a requirement, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
So what do they, if a student wants to go work for a nonprofit or something like that, do they have like a stipend that covers
do.
or?
Yeah, they do. And like, if you can show them that it's like, a substantive job that is valuable, but you're like just working for a nonprofit, they have grants that you can apply for.
Okay.
And they do have, like, they have their career services has like lists of job places locally that are hiring in January and February that are appropriate as well. And they, you have to submit your proposal for your field work by, I think, the end of November. So, and then you can tweak it or work on it. But, I think that one of the things that they say is that, like, by the time you graduate, you've had at least four internships in your field of interest. And so that is a real hiring point, that they can go to different employers and say, I've had this kind of diverse experience. So that, because I think what they say with their outcomes is they feel like they're getting pretty good outcomes, just, even though they're doing things differently. So 40% of their students do go on to some kind of graduate school. And of the kids who don't, like, within 6 months, 84% of them are employed within their field. And these are fields like the arts and arts administration, like, not where like jobs are like super plentiful all the time.
Right.
And they're using the knowledge that they used. Another interesting thing I learned about this school is that every year, half the classes every professor teaches are new for that year.
That sounds really cool to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a lot of work. And they said, obviously, like, some of the ideas are not going to be new, right? You can't completely invent everything under the sun, but it might be organized in different ways. So they have these new classes. The professors know this. They don't have tenure. They have long-term contracts. And when you sign that contract, you're going to have to, like, pony up 50% of your classes as new every year. And that's based on what's going on in the environment, and also just student interest. So that is one thing that Bennington really prides itself on, is the ability to be very responsive and to change quickly. That's kind of in the school's DNA, and it's still happening. If there is some interest or some current event happens that kids want to learn more about, they'll also, in the middle of a semester, do pop-up classes where they pull together classes really quickly, and kids can go and learn about those subjects. So here's something interesting. So if you don't have a major, what kind of degree do you think you get?
I don't know. What kind of degree do you get if you don't have a
Yeah, I
major?
thought this was interesting. You just get a BA in liberal studies. And then they do put on there the areas of study that you spent your time working on. So,
All right. So let me ask you, because they
mhm.
seem a little unconventional. Do they have grades?
Well, you can choose whether or not you want to have grades. And so while that seems tempting, right?
Right.
Let's say they do have some kids who want to go on to grad school, whether it's pre-med or law school, or maybe certain BFA programs, and they need grades for those to apply to those programs. So those kids will typically choose grades. If you don't choose grades, or if you choose grades, you're going to get a narrative evaluation for every class. So there is always going to be some evaluative components. It's not just a free for all. And you can't miss class. It's a small school. They know where you
Yeah.
live. By the way, the students live on campus, because there really isn't that much. There's no off campus unless you want to live with a cow or something. I don't know. And they live in large houses, which might have 30 or 40 students in them. And they're sort of dotted around the campus. But in any event, they have a lot of other stuff going on there. Students lead their housing. It's there's not a housing department. It's student led, and it's participant democracy. So they vote on things. And one thing that every Bennington student that we talked to mentioned repeatedly is a profound sense of community that they felt there. That they felt that they, might not know everybody, but they at least seen them once or twice, and that in their houses, they really work together. It's a very supportive place. And that was something that was really important to them. And I think the school is really trying to change its makeup. Now 15% of their students are typically international. Obviously, last year they had some students who could not get visas. And, we're all going to have to see what happens this year. But they have 20% of their students that are first gen, 25 to 35% are Pell eligible, and 50% are, either people of color. That includes international students of color and domestic students of color.
Did you say 50%?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
it is very diverse. I mean, you walk around and there's, people from everywhere, which again, you wouldn't necessarily expect in the middle of, beautiful, but
No.
nowheresville, Vermont. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Hearing some of the other schools you've visited, this is good news.
Yeah, and it's a very queer-friendly school. Right now, the gender split is about 70% female, 30% male. I think they would like to have more men, but they say they're not one of those schools who puts a thumb on the scale for male applicants. You get in based on your qualifications.
Okay.
There are no sports. They do have a couple IM sports, I think soccer and tennis. And they have they have a gym, like a fitness center. So they don't have sports. So what they do, our guide said, is every Friday or Saturday night, they watch dance performances put on by the dance department. They all go, or some kind of artistic thing. They all go and support their fellow artists.
It does sound like
and
an artsy place. That sounds
yeah,
sounds
it
great.
sounds really cool. I loved the, the things that people put up on bulletin boards, the notices. And I always love those. But this school had like such great notices. The one my favorite one was somebody who said like, have you had weird dreams lately? Please tell me what they are because I need some creative ideas for my monster assignment. And I was just like, oh, honey, how much time do you have to hear about my weird dreams?
I was going to say, let me give you my number.
Yeah, I was just like, I was walking, I couldn't stop. Otherwise, I would have been like, yeah, I've got, and I can just, so many. But I thought that is a great thing. Someone is looking to plumb the unconscious of other people for artistic inspiration. It's also really close to the Appalachian Trail. It goes right by the school. So there's a lot of outdoor stuff that they have going on, hikes and whatnot. And I'm sure there's, I think if you live in Vermont, you have to embrace winter and you have to do all the winter things like sledding and skiing and all of those things, because if you don't, I think you'll go insane is basically the impression that I've gotten.
I think you're right. I think that's true.
Mm-hmm. They were quick to point out they don't have any business classes and they don't have a football team and they don't have an engineering department. So if this is why they think they don't get as many boys, but they don't want them enough to do any of those things. So,
so no sports balls. Okay.
No sport ball there, it is, it is a queer friendly school. You get the sense that it's a pretty accepting place. Cool. And it's a place where diversity, seems a diverse student body is kind of hanging out there. So let's talk about admissions. Here is some good news that I know you will appreciate. Now, I do appreciate, especially during what time of year this is and what you and I have been spending our time doing. They got rid of their supplemental essays. They found they were not helping that much and that they were kind of hard. They were taking a lot of time for everybody and they weren't getting a lot out of them.
Isn't that a little ironic that they put such a focus on writing once you get there, but you don't have to do the essay to get in?
I don't care why they're doing it, Lynda. I just don't want to. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. That's my policy.
I hear you. Considering how many I have in my stack,
yeah. I mean, I'm just saying they're happy. They're happy. I'm happy. So, to be fair, and I'll talk about the Middlebury doesn't require any.
Really? Mm-hmm.
And they're very committed to that because they don't find it to be helpful. And one thing that you will do at Middlebury is you're going to write a lot. So I guess they figure they'll teach you when you get there. They are on the Common app and the Coalition app. They have the usual kind of deadlines. They have ED1, ED2, early action, and regular decision. So ED1 and early action are November 1st. And then ED2 and regular decision are January 10th. And then they've also started something called late decision. And this is for people who have changed their mind about maybe late in the process, maybe even after May 1st or, and so there's the woman who is giving the presentation. She's new to the school, 18 months, and she just started as the director of admissions. But when the last director suggested this, she thought that he lost his mind. But really what was happening is when she was on the school side, everybody knew she was in New York City, that if you had a kid who maybe changed their mind or decided they wanted to do something different, you could call up Bennington and say, hey, would you look at this application? And they would always say, sure. We'll give anybody a try. We'll look at anything once. And so they were already kind of doing it, but now they could reserve financial aid for the late decision people.
Oh. Huh.
And say it didn't spend all their financial aid. And so that kind of reserved that for those people. And she said they've gotten a lot of really fantastic students that way. So
that's good to know. Now, I'm assuming they're test optional.
Yeah, they have been test optional since 2006.
Okay.
And they have a no harm test policy. They decided to put that on their website.
That.
It's very explicitly saying, if it's going to harm you, we never saw that. You never sent it to us. If it's going to help you, then we love it. And we're going to make a big deal out of it. So I just wish schools would really do that more, because I am having lots of conversations about the ACT score of 33, which seems to be the most wonderful and most problematic score when you're looking at applying to some of these, prestigious universities, and their 50th percentile starts at 34. Do you turn in a 33 or not?
Isn't that crazy? I mean,
I
33
don't
is a
know,
great score.
I know. So, I mean, and probably every school, there might be a different answer to that. Certain schools will be like, please send us a score. Other schools are like, well, if I see it, I have to use it. And that's lower than the other people. So I don't know, but they don't do, they do really encourage you to do virtual interviews.
Mm.
They're optional, but they think that that's really good. It gives them a chance to make sure you're a good fit, but it also gives you a chance to really understand more about the school, because, I mean, this school is probably not for everybody, which is
Right.
why they like to keep the school intentionally small. They don't require a portfolio or audition, but if you do have a portfolio or maybe some audition videos or a tape of your dance or music, you can always submit additional info. They have merit aid, they have need-based aid, and they have financial aid for international students. So
That's
they
good
have
to know.
kind of the same thing. And I mentioned the thing about that the students can pick whether or not they want to have grades. They are really trying to get to have a more national footprint. They're sending the reps out traveling this year, and going to places that they haven't traditionally gone to, like North and South Carolina.
Hmm.
And it does seem like Southern students, schools in Vermont would like you to consider them. They have a hard time getting you. It's a hook. Being from the South is the hook. Now, Southern students, you're going to have to get a really good coat and boots if you decide to take advantage of that. So
They're very cute. I mean, LL Bean, good, sturdy boots, cute duffel coats.
yeah, no, I mean, it could be a whole new look. They are also trying to develop some more master's degrees, because that seems to be the theme. Is I think schools are realizing, hey, demographic cliff coming, like, but we are used to serving a certain number of students, but they realize that, just because they're not traditional college students, there are a lot of people who are realizing that it's hard to get a degree, even with just a job with just a college degree. And so they're going back to grad school. And so they've started a master's degree program in mental health counseling, because they asked the state of Vermont what they needed the most, and they said it was that. So they need therapists, and they also have a BFA. They have an MFA, I'm sorry, in screenwriting. And I guess the president is leaving, so they're starting a new presidential search. So if anyone's interested, they are going to be starting that search in January, and hiring for fall of 2027. We asked what some of their peer institutions are, and they said art schools and conservatories, NYU, Sarah Lawrence, Hampshire, Smith, Bard, Reed, and UVM, and that's mainly because they're in the same state as University of Vermont. They say that most of their students do apply through early action or early decision, and early decision can be a bump. They can give you some advantage, and the admissions rate was around 37%. They didn't really break it out, though.
So 37% is overall, not just
is overall, right?
Right.
But all in all, I thought it was a really interesting school, and they were so nice to us. They gave us this really nice dinner. They gave us the best apple cider donuts I've ever eaten in my life. I mean, I don't know where they got those donuts, but the people who made them were just like brilliant artists themselves. They had all organic salad. It was like, must have just been picked like yesterday. It was delicious. I mean, there was just all kinds of great things that they did for us. And, but when we were having dinner, I was just thinking about this whole idea of a self-directed plan. And I thought, that really does probably kind of match a little bit better how young humans' minds actually develop and work. And that in some ways it kind of aligns more with what we know about developmental psychology than, you got to take these classes, do this stuff. because it seems like they are kind of getting them to get out of their comfort zone, but they're doing it like they're suggesting it really nicely. And like it's for your own good kind of thing. So the person thinks it's their idea. And then you know, they are more invested in it, right? And then from there, they're learning and they have this freedom to really, and they're encouraged to really think about, well, what do I think? What do I want to do? And what
Yeah.
kind of life do I want to have? Whereas if you're just, checking the boxes of your major.
You get the course outline, and here's for 4 years exactly what you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be taking, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure those get updated on a regular basis. So yeah, I love the flexibility. What kind of student do you think would be successful at
Mm-hmm.
this school?
Well, I think it's somebody who is an independent thinker, like maybe already starts off that way a little bit, and it could be somebody who maybe found like their traditional high school education to be kind of like a little bit stifling, and
Mm,
wants to kind of branch out and explore things. And, like we all know those kids who are so smart, but if you just look at their transcript, it doesn't reflect how smart they are. But when you talk to them, you're like, oh my God, this kid's brilliant, right? I think because those kids are just like not going to do stuff they're not interested in if they don't see the
right.
point in it. And I think what Middlebury can do, I'm sorry, not Middlebury, what Bennington can do is they can take a kid and show them what the point is. And then, like I
Yeah.
said, then it's their idea. And then we all know that motivation is everything when it comes to things. So, and kids who really are committed to being a good member of a community, a supportive and kind member of a community, and that they are, accepting of other people's differences and hope that their differences will be accepted too. Um, they're just committed to kind of creating community despite and across differences. So, and all in all, like I didn't know what to expect, but I came out of there not only impressed, well fed, but also like it had me thinking about like the philosophical aspects of learning. So, even I was questioning things by the end of it. So, and they just suggested it. They didn't tell me to do it. So,
Wow. Wow. That sounds like, I mean, what more can you want out of a college visit?
no,
Um,
honestly, it was fantastic. We had the cutest like tour guides. They were adorable. I guess we were standing on top and then we're looking down and there are all these kids dumpster diving for art supplies, like
in in actual dumpsters?
and they were in actual dumpsters. They didn't look like they were stinky dumpsters. Maybe people just like discarded things like cardboard or wood or things like that.
Although that organic food left over from lunch.
It didn't look sticky or smelly, but we were just like, is that girl crawling into, and like soon, like everybody was crawling into the dumpster and like taking things out of it. So,
Hmm.
it could have been a class project.
Awesome.
Friends, on Monday's episode, we're going to continue the conversation that Kate and Susan started last week. Insights from the NACAC conference. What was the buzz? What was everybody talking about there? And then Hillary and I do a real deep dive, like it's a recap of all of the things I hope people didn't miss who watched the whole case studies or who listened to the case studies. And I was going to break it up into 2 segments because it went an hour and 15 minutes. But we got a lot of content we want to get to. And as great as the case studies are, I didn't want to go into a week 6 on them. So we're going to run the whole entire 1 hour and 15 minute segment. I think you guys are going to really like it. And friends, you know that I'm really close to my brother Norm. He's my best friend, and we're competitive and we love sports. And so, we were together, in Bermuda at my mom's 87th birthday celebration. And he says to me, Bomani Jones, who, if you guys are really into sports or ESPN, you might know Bomani Jones. He said, Bomani Jones recently picked his top 25 athletes from this century, from 2000 on. Can you guess the top 10? So this kind of stuff drives me crazy. Like, if I'm not getting it, like, it really appeals to my competitive juices. So I got 5 of the top 6. So Usain Bolt was number 1. I got him. Tiger Woods was number 2. I got him. LeBron James number 3. I got that. Tom Brady number 4. I got that, and Serena Williams was number 6. Once again, this is just subjective. This is just Bomani Jones' opinion. But I couldn't get number 5. It was driving me bonkers. And then all of a sudden, my mom, who hardly follows sports at all, she's like, "What are you guys talking about over there for so long?" So we tell her, and then Norm's like, "He's determined to get these top 10, and he can't get number 5." So then my mom says, "Simone Biles," and I'm like, and Norm's like, "Bingo," and then I'm like, "God, jeez, great. You get upped by your 87-year-old mom who's not a sports fan other than she's diehard tennis." So I share all that to say I'm going to close you guys out with a quote from Simone Biles today. Have to do penance for missing her, for missing her in that little guessing game. And I love this quote. So this is what Simone Biles said. "I'd rather regret the risks that didn't work out than the chances I didn't take at all." I'd rather regret the risks I didn't take out than the chances I didn't take at all. And that's the mindset of a great athlete. Because some of you who are into sports might know that a very similar quote came from the mouth of who? Wayne Gretzky, the best hockey player of all time. And he said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." So, food for thought, friends. Think about all the ways you can apply that. Now, I almost didn't say this because I don't want someone out there with a 2.1 GPA taking a shot at MIT or Harvard. But there's a lot of places in your life where you can apply this. Going for the job, trying to run your first 5K, half marathon, taking a challenging class in school that you haven't thought of. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Doing an overseas program is a little bit outside your comfort zone. Just remember, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And Simone Biles, I'd rather regret the risks that didn't work out than the chances I didn't take at all. See you on Monday, friends. And that's our show. Big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about your college-bound kid on your social media feed. And you can help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating on the yourcollegeboundkid.website. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. And if you have a question or a recommendation, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK, hit the orange button, and speak. We will do our best to get your question in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I am the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admissions and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-hosts, Dr. Lisa Ruff in North Carolina, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Esquivel in Massachusetts, Linda Depker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, New London, Connecticut, Hillary Dickman, an Admission Officer at Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and our International Admissions Expert, Kevin Newton in Dallas, Texas. Our sensational sound engineer is Nemanja Matvich. Our amazing music is from Victor Allen Weeks. Marketing designs from Kimberly Bloss. Our reliable webmaster is Stylionis Dimitru. Website updates are done by Joyce Stucker. Our image editor is Vlad Honchar. If you want to have a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegeboundkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly YCBK newsletter, YCBK Plus, it is also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights, our blog, and our upcoming events. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.